My name is Breeze Reid. I am a project manager at the UK Health Security Agency and work on our Ebug programme. The UK HSA is a public body that was set up last year to prepare for and prevent health threats. Ebug is a health education programme operated by the UK HSA, focusing on promoting behaviour change in children and young people so that they are equipped to prevent and cope with health threats by being able to prevent infections from spreading and supporting efforts to reduce antimicrobial resistance. So if we very briefly introduce you to the rest of the team we have with us on the call today. So Magda.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Magda. I'm one of the research assistants with Ebug, and I've been working with the programme for about 4 years now.
Excellent, thank you. And Hayley?
Hi, I'm Hayley Hancock. I work for GHLL for Gloucestershire's County Council and an Ebug trainer and also a teacher, primary school.
Excellent, thank you. And with us today, we also have Liam Clayton, who's another research assistant with us at Ebug, who will be running the chat, and Emily Cooper, who is project manager in our target workstream. Okay, so during the COVID-19 pandemic, we heard from so many teachers that students had quickly picked up and learned important hygiene behaviours to keep themselves and others safe. Over the next hour, we will introduce you to the Ebug programme and show you how you can use these free resources to ensure these behaviours that students picked up are not lost. First, we will explore what we mean by a healthy school and the benefits of achieving this for a school and for wider society. Second, we will look at how students can play a role in creating a healthy school through hygiene. And third, we will give you an overview of the free resources developed through the Ebug programme that can be used to embed behaviours in students and promote a healthy school, and learn from colleagues how they have used these resources to promote good hygiene practices in their settings. So first, I want to ask you a question. Healthy schools can mean many different things. What does it mean to you? How do you define the word healthy? I think some of the things that I'm picking up here is that there's different components. So we've got the mental health and well-being and the happy children and those themes coming through, but we've also got things like RSHE, being fit and physically active and physically healthy as well. And I think that's really important to highlight that actually healthy can mean an array of different things, both physical and mental. So in Ebug, we focus particularly on physical health and particularly on preventing infections like flus, colds and stomach bugs. So I think, as I say, we focus a lot on preventing infections. And that's what we're going to sort of focus on today here. But it is important to consider that healthy means encompassing all of these different things. So linking on from the theme of reducing infection, I'm going to share some information about something called antimicrobial resistance, which I'm aware sounds super sciencey. Actually, it's just about whether or not we can access medicines that work. And it's something that everyone has a role to play in. So I'm going to play a short video about what we can do to help protect antibiotics. But please be advised, this is the most sciencey part of the webinar, so just bear with us for the next couple of slides, okay?
When was the last time you had an infection? It probably wasn't a great worry because you know you can just get some antibiotics. But the problem is, antibiotics don't kill bacteria as well as they used to. The bacteria have become resistant. In fact, there are some bacteria which are now totally resistant to all antibiotics. This is one of the biggest threats to everyone on Earth, and the problem's only going to get worse. Unless we act fast and together, we're going to enter an era where no antibiotics work. It will be like going back to the 1930s, before they were discovered. Infections that we now regard as trivial were often fatal. Complex surgery was impossible because of the risk of infection. In fact, Modern medicine depends massively on antibiotics. Did you know cancer treatment destroys the immune system? Most patients need antibiotics to survive. Imagine, no more heart, bowel or bone operations, no more cancer treatment. This is where we're headed. But with 3 very simple steps, we can all become antibiotic guardians. Step 1, don't demand antibiotics from your doctor. We've all been there, begging for antibiotics because you feel terrible, or worse still, you're looking after a sick child. We don't need them every time we're ill. In fact, although everyday infections may make you feel unwell, antibiotics make very little difference to colds, flus, and sore throats and coughs. So ask a pharmacist about over-the-counter remedies that can treat your symptoms. Step 2, take antibiotics exactly as they're prescribed. Never save them for use in the future. Never give them to someone else. They'll work better and the bacteria are less likely to become resistant. Step 3, spread the word. Tell your friends and family to use antibiotics properly. Send them this video and share it. Antibiotics are some of our most precious medicines, and we're going to lose them unless we all become antibiotic guardians.
So I'm hoping that the video highlighted that antimicrobial resistance is a serious issue, and that by working together to build a healthy school and prevent infections, we can work to minimise this threat and protect our healthcare provisions for future generations. To support this, every year between the 18th and 24th of November, so that's beginning tomorrow, is World Antimicrobial Awareness Week, or WOW. And the aim is to promote the actions we can take to support reducing this threat. Magda has put together a blog of 4 things that schools can do to celebrate WOW. The first of which is attending this webinar to learn more about antimicrobial resistance. So thank you very much for being here. Others include actions such as sharing these messages through assemblies, and you'll see there's a link to the Antibiotic Guardian page, which has more information and ideas on how to do that, as well as including activities to promote good hand and respiratory hygiene behaviours and using posters to remind students of these. So the link for the blog has just been posted in the chat now, so please do go and check that out later today. A little bit more on why it's so important to raise awareness of antimicrobial resistance. You can see that in addition to threatening our future healthcare provisions, 700,000 people per year are currently dying of deaths relating to AMR. I really want to draw your attention to this bottom figure. At the moment, over 200,000 children under 5 die from drug-resistant infections every year, and children are expected to continue to disproportionately be impacted by this threat. But thankfully, by promoting a healthy school, we can help reduce the impact of AMR on children and communities. There are obvious short-term benefits to preventing infections from spreading, such as reduced absence rates and more time learning. But there's also a bigger picture. Promoting a healthy school also benefits us in the long term and ensures that students in future generations have access to effective medicines that are protected from drug-resistant infections. So now let's have a look at some of the actions we can take to build a healthy school and protect our medicines. Some of these actions may not be relevant to each setting or age group, but if we start at the top left and consider the importance of embedding hygiene practices, such as hand, respiratory and oral hygiene. Simple hand and respiratory hygiene behaviours are extremely effective means to minimise childhood infections. And with tooth decay, the leading cause of hospitalisation in 5 to 9-year-olds, hygiene is critical to reduce absenteeism. If we move over to the top right, adopting safe food preparation and cooking practices, we can promote a healthy school by students understanding how to reduce the risk of food poisoning and avoid spreading infections amongst their family or friends through food contamination. Along the bottom, we move to understand what microbes are and that there are different types of microbes which require different treatments. We think this is critical so that students have the basis of knowledge from which to act. If they understand what bacteria are and how antibiotics work, they are less likely to consider using antibiotics to treat a virus. They're also more likely to understand that microbes can be managed and used for a variety of purposes, as well as prevented from causing illness, and that they have a role to play in this. And finally, to grow up as the antimicrobial stewards of the future, understanding why preventing infections from spreading and using antimicrobials effectively is so important, and in sharing these messages with their friends, families, and communities. So before I move on, I just want to pause on this page and open up the floor. Which of these 4 actions do you think are well established within your setting? And which do you think might be a challenge and why? Hayley, I might put you on the spot and call on you here. Which of these actions do you think are well established and which do you think might be a challenge? You're primary school, correct?
Yeah, so I'm primary. So at the moment and EYFS, we have our preschool setting as well. So I would definitely say that embedding the hand hygiene has really helped us from that early stage, from as soon as the children at preschool are coming in, moving into our reception classes. And so now for me as the year 2 teacher, these practices have just been, really well established, along with sort of snuffle stations and mirrors and just enhancements as we've gone along on our journey, really.
Great. So yes, I think particularly at the younger age groups, as you said, it's much easier to start to build that foundation of knowledge and start to embed some of those behaviours, and perhaps sort of the growing up as the antimicrobial stewards is something that will happen as students get older and progress through their school and learning. Yeah. If anyone else has anything to contribute, please do put that in the chat or either raise your hand. If not, I shall move on for now. Okay, so we're going to move on and introduce Ebug to you and have a look at some of the free resources that we provide. So as you all know, embedding behaviour means building on knowledge over time and learning through play, interactive experiments, writing, presenting and listening. We've been working closely with teachers and scientists who are experts in infection prevention, microbes, antimicrobial resistance and vaccinations to develop a learning journey to embed knowledge and behaviours from the age of 3 onwards. To give you an example of what this might look like for hand hygiene, a student aged 3 will learn how to wash their hands with soap. A student aged 6 will learn that washing hands with soap will lift the microbes from their hands. A student aged 8 will learn that washing their hands with soap not only lifts the microbes from their hands, but stops the spread of microbes to others. A student aged 12 will learn that microbes will spread from hand to hand if hand hygiene practices aren't followed, and some of these microbes might be harmful and cause illness. And then finally, a student aged 15 will learn that pathogens can be transmitted through poor hand and poor respiratory hygiene, and how hygiene can break the chain of infection. So we've developed a whole range of resources that can be used by those working with children and young people, all centred around this learning journey. These include lesson plans for early year settings and schools that are mapped to the national curriculum and are particularly relevant for science and PSHE. They include experiments, extension activities, games, worksheets and handouts. I'm going to show you a very short video to explain a little bit more about some of our resources for schools. So for those of you who are familiar with Ebug, you'll notice that we have rebranded and updated some of our content, including expanding to include early years. Previously, all of our resources were available in over 20 different languages, and we're working towards doing this with our updated content. In light of the current situation, I wanted to make you aware that our old resources are currently still available in Ukrainian, should you wish to access these. And if you're interested to hear more about our updates through our quarterly newsletter, there'll be an option to sign up to this at the end. So based on the need to embed healthy behaviours, the resources cover a number of topics that support this. At early years, the topics just focus on improving hygiene behaviours, so how to wash your hands, cover a sneeze or a cough, and to brush teeth. At Key Stage 1, we introduce microbes, bacteria, viruses and fungi, bringing in the foundation of knowledge on where infections come from and the different characteristics that microbes have. In Key Stage 2, we really broaden out the topics, looking at hygiene in different settings with animals and preparing food, as well as exploring more characteristics of microbes and how they can be useful and harmful. We also introduce the history of vaccinations and start to explore when you might come across antibiotics. In Key Stage 3, we continue to build on the knowledge of hygiene, but now this is much more focused on infection prevention and control, including how knowledge can be applied in real-world settings. Students are also introduced to the topic of sexually transmitted infections and how these can be prevented and transmission controlled. In Key Stage 4, no new topics are introduced, but students further build on their learning and understanding and explore issues such as STI and vaccine misconceptions, debate around antimicrobial resistance, and scenarios of how diseases can spread and be controlled across the world. By covering these topics at different ages and in different depths, we aim to support students to take on board these behaviours throughout their time at school, creating healthier students and a healthier school. By the time they leave, our aim is that all students are washing their hands at key moments, taking actions to prevent infections, and using antimicrobials appropriately. So we don't have time to show you all of the activities and resources now, but we want to give you a little taster of what the resources include so that you have some practical ideas of how you can embed hygiene messages to create a healthier school. So hand hygiene, or put simply hand washing, remains one of the most effective actions we can take to stop infection spreading, and this is fundamental to building a healthy school. I'm going to talk you through the main activities from Ebug lesson plans that promote hand hygiene in children and young people, which accompany a whole range of extension activities, worksheets and discussion points. If I show you again our learning journey, you can see hand washing is taught right across the ages, starting with earlier years up to Key Stage 4. The lessons progressively build on the information they have already learned as they come up through school. What I'm going to do next is take you along the learning journey and provide you with an overview of these lessons so that you can get a flavour of what it is that we offer. So let's start with early years. In this simple experiment, a balloon or glove is used to represent a hand. You or the child can then draw on the balloon to represent microbes. If your artistic skills are anything like mine, then this can just be a scribble, but you can get as creative as you like with this. Then ask the students to wash the balloon and see that as they scrub the different parts of the hands, the microbes are moved. This is a great way to help children to visualise that microbes or germs are on their hands, introduce the notion of running water and using soap to remove these, and to practice scrubbing the different parts of the hands. So, has anyone tried an activity like this? Did it work well? So if you're feeling bold, feel free to raise your hand. If not, feel free to comment in the chat and let us know how you've got on, or if you've got any tips for activities like this.
Not a question, but we've got Demelza saying no, but it looks great.
No, but it looks great. Excellent. That's nice to hear. I think our sort of main comment and feedback on this is just to make sure that you use a washable marker pen and not a permanent marker pen. So these would be typically the types of board pens that you'd have for whiteboards in the classroom, just to make sure that students can actually wash the microbes off the balloon.
So, Katie, yes, myself and other members of the team did this activity with numerous nurseries across Salford.
Nice, that's good to hear. How did it go?
It was good. We offered it to about maybe 30 nurseries, and we ended up, I think 8 nurseries took it up, so we went to across a few of them. But yeah, the children really enjoyed it. It was good.
Great. It's always nice to hear that the kids are having fun as well while they're learning these behaviours. So that's really great to hear.
Lauren has said that she used the snot gun in a demonstration.
Excellent, good. We're not covering the snot gun today, but I'm sure it will end up coming up somewhere or other. It's for those of you who don't know, it's quite a famous Ebug activity. I think we've got a picture of it on a later slide, so I won't give too much away for now. All right, it's great to hear that so many of you have used these activities or similar, and we'll move on and have a little look at what we've got on offer for Key Stage 1. So having visualised a representation of microbes on our hands, in Key Stage 1, we move on to a fun experiment to understand why it's important to use soap when washing our hands. Using soap is important because it's required to break the oils on the surface of the hands, producing a lather which helps lift the dirt and microbes from the hands that can then be washed away with running water. To illustrate why soap matters, we suggest doing a really simple experiment that uses pepper or cinnamon, a bowl of water and soap. The bowl of water represents the surface of the hand and the pepper represents microbes. So first, just sprinkle some cinnamon or pepper into the bowl of water, then ask students to dip a cocktail stick in the cocktail stick or a lollipop stick in the bowl and swirl it around. So discuss how the microbes are being moved around, but they're still there. And you can explain that this is similar to when we just wash our hands with water. So this time you can ask students to dip the stick in the soap, try and get a good amount on, and then plunge the soapy stick into the centre of the bowl of water. So the effect should be quite dramatic. They should see that the microbes instantly repel from the soap and move to the edge of the bowl. And this demonstrates the important role of soap in lifting the microbes from your hands and then removing them by rinsing with running water. And I think this really nicely illustrates the importance of why soap is needing and moves away from the splash and dash that can sometimes occur. So we also offer extension activities for each topic. And in Key Stage 1, we have some flashcards to reinforce the correct order to wash your hands. So we did this one at a conference not too long ago. And actually, I think what we were quite impressed by was the fact that even though this is an activity aimed at Key Stage 1, there was a real age range of students available there. And even the sort of 16-year-olds were quite impressed by the sort of dramatic effect of using the soap on the water. And even at that age, they were really understanding and engaging why it was so important. So I think this is one of my favourites. I think this is something that can really easily be done at home as well. So especially if parents are homeschooling, or I think it shows that it can be done in lots of different settings or sort of scout groups or things like that. And it doesn't just have to be a classroom base. So yeah, really nice. So in early years in Key Stage 1, we focused on the how to wash hands. And this activity introduces the why. Why hand washing is important to reduce transmission of microbes and infections. And the reason we look at the why is that we know from research that we are all more likely to stick with a behaviour if we understand why it's important. So in this experiment, we use UV gel to represent microbes, and other activities in the Ebug resources can be used to explain what a microbe is and how some can be harmful to humans. So there are lots of variations on how this activity can be done, But in its simplest form, you divide students into different groups, select one student from each group and apply UV gel to their hands. Ask student 1 to shake hands with student 2, student 2 to shake hands with student 3, and so on. And then you'll use the UV lamp to identify how far the UV gel, representing microbe, travels. So you can then ask students to examine whether students 4 or 5 in the group have traces of the UV gel on their hand, despite never having direct contact with student 1. And this shows just as the UV gel can travel, so too can microbes that are harmful to humans. So we've got a slight variation of this experiment here, whereby in this example, we've split the students into 4 groups. So group A, top left, is no hand washing. Group B, washing with water for 3 seconds. Group C, washing with water for 20 seconds. And group D, washing with soap and water for 20 seconds. And you can see that they will shake hands and again use the UV lamp to compare how much UV gel representing the microbes has remained on the hands. And you can see quite clearly, group A, top left, there's far more gel than in group D. So I'd be interested to hear if anyone on the call has given this one a go. And like I say, there are so many different variations. If anyone's come across something that's a little bit different to those which I've described. So yeah, please just pop in the chat if you've given it a go, or maybe just a thumbs up to let us know that you've tried it, whichever you like.
Oh, hi there. Yes, I've tried it many times, and because we try and do it en masse, just maybe a whole class or sometimes even assembly, we can, if we get them in lines, we can do quite a lot of children, and then if we turn the lights out, it's quite effective.
Yeah.
So I think it's brilliant. The children absolutely love having the glowing hands.
Excellent, yes. So like I say, I think it's really great that you can turn the lights off and do it with the UV gel. But if you don't have UV gel, you can do this with sort of oil and sunflower oil and eco glitter and things like that. So yeah, but it's a great way, as you said, to get a lot of students involved in one go through assemblies or in a classroom. So that's great.
We were able to buy torches, so instead of having a lamp, we had bought handheld torches to pass down the line so that everyone could have a look.
Oh, excellent. And
Yeah.
I suppose they were really engaged with looking at their hands.
Yes,
and...
yeah, and it got them talking about predicting how far down the line. So like you said, it was lots of conversation about predictions, how far it would get, and how, like I said, the first person hasn't touched the 6th person, but it can get all the way. We found traces at the end, so it was really effective and a really good visual.
Oh, that's great to hear. I think the other thing to mention, you were talking about predictions and things like that, is we do have worksheets to accompany these, so students can record their observations and make predictions in advance, and we provide worksheets to support these activities as well. Okay, I will move on to Key Stage 3. So here we start to look at the real microbes that are on our hands, building on the why we wash them, and showing the difference between washing and not washing. So students will need 2 petri dishes of nutrient agar, and these can be brought online or prepared in advance. They will then make fingerprints in the dish, both before and after washing their hands, and compare the growth of microbes from their hands under each condition. So again, I've got another very short video to highlight what this looks like. So you can see I've got 2 separate plates. And after touching some high traffic areas, such as light switches and door handles, I make some fingerprints in the nutrient agar. I've then washed my hands using the 6 steps of hand washing that students have previously learnt. And then I repeat that by making fingerprints on the clean plate. The plates are flipped and incubated for 48 hours, and then you can quite nicely see the results. It's very clear which is the dirty plate, and you can very visibly see the growth of microbes from my fingers. So you might have tried a variation of this. So if you don't have petri dishes and nutrient agar, you can use white bread to do something similar. So I don't know if anyone's given this one a go, or feel free to give us a thumbs up if you have, or if you'd like to try something like this in the future.
We used it, Breeze, but again with early years with the bread experiment. So I still think, you know, that you could be creative and take these main concepts and just adapt and change. And Key Stage 1 were absolutely amazed when they saw the bread and the different, it had been wiped around sink areas, and we put one in the staff room and just put one around the staff sink as well. And yeah, it was amazing. It's so visual, it's brilliant.
Right, yeah, and like I say, I just think those three where you can really clearly see the fingers that have been placed in the agar there, it's quite disgusting, really. I think it's good for sharing that message, isn't it? Great. All righty, I'll move on to the very last one, which is Key Stage 4 and the toilet paper experiment. So this one here specifically focuses on the key points where hand washing is critical to prevent infection spread. So this experiment uses nutrient agar plates to grow yeast, and the yeast represents feces and the swab represents a hand. So to start, our students to swab the yeast and wipe this on plate A, and this is a control to show the effects of direct contact with feces. So next, you'd cover the swab in toilet paper, swab the yeast and wipe this on plate B, and this would represent using toilet paper and not washing your hands. And then finally, you'd cover the swab with tissue paper, swab the yeast, throw the toilet paper away and wash the swab, the same as washing your hands, and then wipe this on plate C. And then this would represent using the toilet paper and then washing your hands. So again, you'd incubate the plates in a manner that I just described for the previous experiment. And then by comparing the different plates, student can document observations and conclude why hand washing is so important at this key moment. So while the main activity continues to emphasise the importance of individual behaviours, it's then built on by a number of extension activities where students explore the critical moments within the school or other setting whereby infections can spread or be reduced. Other activities include the resources focus on students developing communications to break the chain of infection in school and simulating how interventions such as hand hygiene can be used to prevent global outbreaks. So I've shown you some of our hand hygiene activities, and it's really great to hear that some of you have tried them already and how successful that they've been. But I'm aware that hearing it from me isn't quite the same as hearing them from a fellow teacher who's tried them and has that hands-on experience. So I'd like to introduce you to Hayley, who is a primary school teacher, and she's going to share how she's used Ebug in her school. So I know we've heard from Hayley a little bit before, but would you like to just give a little bit more of an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, I have two roles within Ebug. I've been lucky enough to pilot for Gloucestershire County Council under our GHLL offer for PSHE and RSHE provision. And also as a teacher myself, I've used Ebug through EYFS, Key Stage 1 and just recently Key Stage 2. And again, it's such a lovely, easy resource to use and it's so progressive. You know, I can't talk highly enough about it, really.
Great. Okay, so we've just got some questions that we're going to put to Hayley first. So what topics have you covered with Ebug?
I think now I've nearly done them all, which is really, really good. So obviously the hand washing, like we said, we started a couple of years ago and just sort of reinforcing. And now we've got the early years section on Ebug, which is really great. You know, we can get younger children trained from the word go. And it's also helped with our attendance and attendance officers. And within Gloucestershire, we run a Healthy Schools Award, and we've used the hand washing unit as an intervention and looking at our caretaker, how much soap that we had started in one term. Then we put in the Ebug and the hand washing intervention throughout the school, and actually the numbers of soap then ordered had sort of almost gone 4 times the amount than we had originally started with. So we were using that towards our Healthy Schools Award. The dental hygiene is brilliant, and again in the new EYFS curriculum. And the respiratory, like you're saying with Shrek, it's always a winner for Key Stage 1 and 2, and used it as wow moments as well.
That's great. I know you've told me about the use of Ebug as part of the Healthy Schools Award before, and every time I still am fascinated by the 4 times more soap use. So tell us, did you do that through lots of different classes, or did you do that as an assembly? How did you deliver that intervention?
For us, we started a wow moment through using Shrek and the respiratory sections, and then that was a wow moment in an assembly with the whole school there. We're 2 form-entry primary school, so 420 pupils on roll, and it really got the children excited. And using Shrek, you know, obviously if you're going to go into it a bit later on, I mean, it is a wow moment, and he's a brilliant character to represent. And we were travelling on a bus, and we set a bus up at the front of the school, and just having him at the back seat of the bus, and you know what could have happened. He's gone on the journey, he has a huge sneeze at the back there, and just reinforces that when Shrek gets off the bus, he's touching the bus handles and the bell as he's getting off, or you'll high five a friend on the way down. And you know, it really sort of impacted, I think, very closely with the children. Oh, that's gross. And then, you know, all the teachers then went into their own classes with their age and stage appropriate lessons, and covered the hand washing first, and that importance, and reinforcing the catch it, bin it, kill it, and then progressing on to the respiratory unit afterwards.
Great. Yeah, I really like, as you said there, just being able to progress and integrate those topics of, okay, we've learned about hand hygiene and how that relates into the respiratory hygiene as well. So that's really nice to hear. So tell me a little bit more about how you've managed to do that integration. Do you use the lesson plans in their entirety? Because obviously there is a sort of full 50-minute lesson plan that's set out, or do you just prefer using little bits of it, or a mismatch of the both?
A mismatch, really. Again, because we're a large primary school, we have ECTs and we have experienced teachers, so you know, we're quite fully embedded with our Ebug journey, really, so we're quite lucky. But the ECTs who are just joining us are sort of picking up the lesson plans. They're so easy to pick up and so well resourced that they can, if they haven't got any previous knowledge, you know, they can adapt as much as they want. Everything's downloadable in a Word or a PDF version from the web, and it's easy for us to make bespoke tweaks here and there. And I hate to mention the Ofsted word, but Ofsted really enjoyed listening to some of our children talk about Ebug as well as part of our RSHE offer, and just making those bespoke links to tweak to our children, maybe with SEND or extra sensory needs. So it's there that you can, you know, easily pick up. And then our experienced teachers could skim and scan and just sort of have a refresher for themselves, for their own CDP. And, you know, we're not scientists. And I think people sort of look at this and go, oh, there's lots of science. And yes, there is, but it's really interesting and it's really easy and broken down for our own CDP, that we can just pick this up and then you can tweak it as you move on, really.
That's great. And yeah, like we say, when we sort of created the resources, this was very much our hope, was that people would adapt them and use them as works for them, because we recognise that different schools have different needs. I think that's really nice to see how they can just be adapted and fit different needs. Okay, so here is the infamous Shrek mask and the snot gun. Could you tell us a little bit about what the level of engagement has been like with the students that have used Ebug?
Yeah, I mean, they absolutely love it. They are, you know, so engaged from the word go. I think they can really sort of tap in and in tune with Shrek. Like I've said, you know, he is a disgusting character. Straight away they want to come up. If you're doing it as a whole school assembly, I've done it both, you know, they're all intrigued and they want to come up. But again, Key Stage 2 have done some brilliant inquiry. There's lots of this scientific inquiry involved there, in the prediction elements, like you say, and have used your sheets and things. So there's they've taken like their own learning on, and I think, yeah, they're just, I haven't met a child that hasn't enjoyed just looking in that. Again, you're just bringing that science alive. And I think through COVID, where lots of our children have had anxieties of being worried or mentioned the word germ, I think it's really important to reinforce that vocabulary element of microbes. And actually some of our microbes are healthy, well, majority are healthy as you go on to learn. So actually, you know, it's things like that as well that they are interested in.
Yeah, and yeah, as I say, linking back to that conference, that it really was just a full range of students who were really captivated by the Shrek mask. And yes, it might be an activity that's aimed at younger students, I think Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2, but actually the older students seem to really enjoy it as well. So yeah, that's really nice to hear. And then how do you think the materials supported their learning and their hygiene behaviours?
Well, as we said, I mean, we were tracking for baseline, so lots of things that we could track data-wise, attendance and things like that. So their behaviour and their hygienes, you know, had improved. So illness, we'd seen a drop with the illness rate. Again, we did lots of linking to our community as well. So we would put out links into the parents, and so they could see and reinforce the catch it, bin it, kill it, or the hand washing techniques, or posting some of your videos and clips. Especially recently, because I know that you've done lots more updates on your videos and things. So again, that supporting for the materials for the children is really important, but actually lots of this needs to be carried on and followed on at home as well. So yeah, that's been a huge thing, and like I say, we can record that. Yeah,
I noticed earlier you said about the absenteeism,
yes,
and that had reduced when you did the intervention. Do you have anything else to sort of say about that, or?
But I think the attendance of, I mean, because we're a large school, we have our own attendance officer. So she sits and looks very clearly at the data and sort of linked to illness, because, you know, lots of it's like 57-58% of illnesses, you know, and attendance links there. But just tapping into the common colds, and Ebug do a really lovely parent leaflet about the length of waiting for the antibiotic use, sort of waiting for coughs and colds and temperatures, and just checking things like runny noses and things, because I think with, again, COVID, lots of our younger children or parents haven't had that community support from health visitors or things like that. So we've sort of been the first port of call. So I think signposting that way has then helped the parents again, or, you know, we'll keep them off, or, you know, actually that sickness bug, we're saying 24 or 48 hours is there for a reason. So I think we're helping again, and so that has improved the attendance, just giving the knowledge.
That's great, thank you. And then just finally, is there anything else that teachers should know about Ebug?
Just how easy it is to use. Honestly, the resources are there and they're really, really good. They're up to date. They interest the children. The children really, really love it. There are things that you can, if you're going on courses or you want to leave the supply teachers, you know, I love the lists that you'll need and that sort of checking process. There are sort of advanced warning notes as well, if there is some pre-prep to do, which is really, really good. There's lots of vocabulary opportunities. I think if you're working with the Oracy project or the Voice 21 projects, things like that, primary talk, there's lots of opportunities to link in. It's not just an add-on. I know as teachers we think, oh, here we go, you know, what are we being thrown now, and sort of juggling plates, but this really is something that complements the curriculum so well, especially with the DFE 2020 guidance for the relationship health side of the education there. You know, it is so easy to do, and if we ever went back to online learning, you know, everything's there for PDF format that we could use, or the signposting. You know, I honestly think it's brilliant. Yeah, give it a go, try it.
That's great, thank you very much, Hayley. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask Hayley, please put them in the chat, and we can put them to Hayley at the end, or if not, we can hang on for an extra minute or two afterwards if there's any specifics.
Yeah,
so thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to now hand over to Magda, who's going to explain to you where you can find these materials and how to navigate them.
Thank you so much, Breeze. So all of our resources are free to download from our website. That is www.e-bug.eu, and I think Liam will also put it in the chat for you now. So when you come to the homepage, you'll see that we have a section for teachers, a section for community resources, and a section for training materials. Under teachers, you can see that there's a homepage for each of the key stages. And if I click, for example, early years, and then select a topic, for example, hand hygiene, I'd be taken to the following page. So for every lesson in every key stage, you'll see that there's a brief introduction at the top of the page, a list of learning outcomes, and some more detailed background information for each topic as well. So if you scroll further down, you'll see that all of the activities are listed for that lesson, as well as any links to the curriculum. I can also draw your attention to this banner here. So you can see that you can download the entire lesson, and that's either as an editable Word document or as our formatted PDF documents. And I should say that the PDF documents have all been made to be fully accessible as well. So if you only wanted to do one of the activities, for example, in a lesson and not the entire lesson, then you can download all of the sheets that you would need for that separately on the side here. And for some activities, if you scroll down a little further, you'll also see a short video demonstration. You've seen some of the clips already in this presentation and kind of giving you a taster of what is in the resource. So onto the resources themselves. Whether you have the printed pack or you access the resources online, I can now talk you through how to navigate those. So firstly, within the full packs, you'll find the teacher guidance, and this really provides a summary of understanding in case any topic is new to you. Here in the early years and key stage 1 pack, you can also see that the sections are color coded, and that's just to help improve navigability. So at the start of each lesson plan, you'll find an overview of information about that lesson. This includes links to the national curriculum, advanced preparation, the resources required for that lesson, any health and safety points to consider, and also an overview of the activities. So the section on the right here shows each of the worksheets and the additional materials that would be associated with that lesson as well. So to support each lesson, we also provide some introductory points, and these really help generate some class discussion, help students explore what they might already know about a topic. For our main activity, we also provide a handy infographic. This is to help with setup and running the activity. Each of our main activities are really intended to help students to conceptualise the topic, particularly for key stages 1 through to 4. Students are really encouraged to record their observations and make conclusions based on these to develop their understanding about the topic. So worksheets and handouts are available to support students to do this. They're all provided at the end of a lesson plan if you're using the whole lesson plan, or they can be downloaded separately on the website as well. So we then have our range of extension activities that teachers can use as and when they wish. So for younger students, we offer activities to take home quite often. So these could be toothbrushing charts, for example, just to really reinforce that learning at home and reinforce those behaviours that we want to see. For older students, we offer additional research presentation projects, opportunities for peer learning, debate, and some role-playing scenarios as well. And finally, each lesson concludes with a learning consolidation activity. So this is really to check that the outcomes of that lesson are met. And the end of each section, you'll also find student worksheets and teacher prompt sheets. So if there's any additional information that's needed for that lesson, that's where it will be. So yeah, our aim with these resources is for teachers to really pick and choose what they want to use, as has already been described by Hayley. Or if they'd like, it's an entire lesson, it's all there, and it can be run within a 50-minute teaching session. So I'd recommend following the link in the chat to have a proper explore of the website. Hopefully you'll find it intuitive to navigate, but as always, we love feedback. So if you have anything to say, just let us know. I think we'll be adding contact details into the chat as well. So that kind of gives you a summary of how to navigate the resources, and I can hand back over to Breeze to wrap up.
Great, thank you very much for that, Magda. Like we say, the web link should be going in the chat now, so feel free to go away and have a look. And as Magda's just shown you, you can either download the whole pack for a key stage, or you can download individual lessons or worksheets. So feel free to have a look. And if you have any feedback, like we say, email will be there at the end, and we'd love to hear from you. So before we conclude, I just wanted to give you my top tips for making the most of the Ebug resources. Firstly, as I've mentioned, while you can use the whole lesson plan, you don't have to. Have a flick through the activities and topics, see what fits your plans and what will work for your students. The plans are ideas, but adapt them as much as you want to meet your needs. If you hit on anything that works really well, please let us know so that we can share it with others. We are hoping to introduce a section to our newsletter where we have top tips on activities, and that only works if we hear back and get some feedback from others. So if you do hit upon anything, please do let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And second, have fun. While many of the activities illustrate really important concepts, they're also designed to support children and young people to associate those behaviours and messages with positivity. Many of the experiments, particularly in early years, Key Stage 1 and 2, don't have to be done perfectly to send a clear message. Take our respiratory hygiene snot gun. When we've done this with groups of children, we've ended up with green food colouring absolutely everywhere, queues of children who want to make Shrek sneeze, and quite honestly, general chaos. But the message still gets through. Covering Shrek sneeze with a tissue stops it going so far, and that's the same for humans. And finally, don't panic. As we mentioned, while our materials are evidence-based and reviewed by experts in UKHSA, that they are designed with and for educators, not scientists. They are developed in a way that assumes no or little prior knowledge on science, because we didn't know who might end up using them. So therefore, don't be put off by the scientific nature of the material. It is for you to use, even if you don't have that science background. So to summarise, we started today by looking at what we mean by a healthy school. Well, a healthy school means so many different things, but a key threat to all of our health is the spread of drug-resistant infections and the increasing ineffectiveness of antimicrobials. A healthy school is one where students and staff are aware of the role they can play in reducing the spread of infections. Students play a big role in contributing to a healthy school, and they can do this by practicing good hygiene behaviours such as hand washing, and by sharing these messages and behaviours with their communities. We've given you a little taster of some of the resources Ebug offers, and you can download these for free and integrate them into what you are already doing to support students to build a healthy school. This is just a taster, but if you'd like further training, please get in touch and we can direct you to what's happening online or where possible in your region. We'll be running future webinars over the next year, And if there are any topics you would like to see covered, please send your suggestions to our email address, which is e-bug@ukhsa.gov.uk.